put it into Bitcoin, I'm sure you're going to be fine. There's no guarantees in crypto, but I think that's a conservative way to go about it. But also feeding into this kind of relative uncertainty of stablecoins is now the SEC and a lot of US based regulators. They see stablecoins as like their biggest threat. There's certain reasoning for Bitcoin to not see this 80 to 90% drop, but no one knows what's going to happen. Maybe they're going to want to take profits while they can because they think it could do that. So what would that kind of sell volume do to these open markets, especially for retail investors who typically aren't buying during the accumulation phase that we saw in 2019, even into 2020. They're attracted to the high prices.
I'm not sure if you saw something going on in Twitter yesterday. Mark Cuban versus the entire Bitcoin maximalist movement. I'm not sure if you.
I missed it. You got to fill me in.
So it was like there were like 15,000 people tuning in live, and there were a lot of verified accounts in Twitter going against Mark Cuban's stance on Bitcoin. So the whole argument was the whole Bitcoin Bitcoin maxis were pretty much Bitcoin is not just a store of value, but it's also a medium of exchange. But Mark Cuban saying it's just a store. It's just a store of value. I'm curious, where are you in this, and what argument you see has more merit? Is Bitcoin just a store of value, or do you see a point in the future later on, especially because of the Lightning Network, etc.? We may see transactions really happen here because Mark Cuban was saying that, oh, I like Doge better. People will spend more on Doge than on Bitcoin. He would always say that I haven't seen people use Bitcoin for payment. They're just really storing it, and Bitcoin is just really a store of value.
It's really interesting that people try so hard since the start of Bitcoin and these cryptos is to try to fit it in a box that they can understand and try to label it. And the thing is, Bitcoin has had narratives that changed ever since its existence. And now it's moving into the store of value narrative because of inflation. I'm saying that so much today, but so it's a store of value. It is a unit of exchange. You can send it to anyone you want. You can interact with the most secure cryptocurrency network that exists, the most decentralized network that exists. Saying that, I am not a Bitcoin maximalist. I don't think it's like the end all be all crypto. There's no perfect cryptocurrency that exists yet. I think it's great. This is all a giant experiment, and it's open source for a reason. And people are constantly building and taking ideas and doing cool things. But yeah, like you said, with Lightning Network, for example, the irony that this was all happening on Twitter is that Twitter recently announced they're going to enable Bitcoin payments through the Lightning Network. So obviously starting with the US, and it's a little bit limited right now, but that whole concept of being able to tip micropayments in Bitcoin, micropayments, like you can be, I always think of, when I hear micropayments, I think of Andreas Antonopoulos, and he had this great speech where he started talking about you could stream money, just like how you stream a video on Netflix. And that's how passive income can be coming into you. And not only that, but you're streaming, a great cryptocurrency that is Bitcoin. So that would be the best of both worlds, obviously, being able to freely transact in something that is also a great hedge against inflation and just a great store of value. So it's a lot of things. It's a store of value, it's a unit of exchange, it's a settlement layer, it's a autonomous peer-to-peer transaction system, it's immutable, it's a lot of things. So I think that's a great thing. But yeah, Mark Cuban, he's got a lot to learn in this crypto space. I give him credit. He's put himself out there, he's made a few mistakes, but he'll learn.
But what's so interesting about this is the cryptocurrency market is like a decade old, and of course there are a lot of people who were earlier in this space, but I feel like it's so new that there's still a lot of things that all of us collectively together we still don't know as well. There's still a lot of things that could be discovered into this, and I want to segment into this that when people enter and somehow trade or move around their cryptocurrencies, one of the things that has been popping up is stablecoins. That okay, if I want to de-risk, I'll just move it into Tether, USDC, BUSD, or whatever stable coin that's there. But here's my question. That's what I've said prior to this video, that I've done a lot of studying, and what I've realized is, uh, based on what's going on, um, a lot of these stable coins look even riskier because of the assets that they're holding, and it's unclear if it's relatively safe. And this whole issue about China and Evergrande, and there might be some of them that may have exposure into it, commercial papers. Um, I was actually thinking this. Uh, Bitcoin may be more volatile than stablecoins, but it might be it might be a safer bet still than leaving your money into stablecoins. My question is, what's your take on that? Second is, when people take profits from alts, do you recommend that they just put it in Bitcoin? It's volatile, but it's actually safer, or put it into stablecoins. It's not as volatile, but there might be a larger amount of risk later on.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, and it's something that I think more people need to pay attention to, is this concept of stable coins. And you're absolutely right. Tether has had FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt about it for years now, and constantly changing the banks that they're partnered with, constantly changing what you're saying, what's actually backing their stable coin, whether it's US dollars or an assortment of assets that they're not even disclosing. And now it's recently coming out that, USDC was going to be, it's the perfected tether. It's regulated. It's, fully whatever. And now it's like the same thing. Like it's kind of convoluted what's actually backing that, if it is just US dollars or more. But you also have stable coins like DAI and like UST with Luna, which are not backed by physical fiat dollars. It's more of like an algorithm and an elastic supply of coins that achieve its stability. But the bottom line, the success of any stable coin, it relies very heavily on the faith of that coin. If people don't think it's going to be stable, they're not going to use it. And the lack of liquidity on it is going to, if they can't achieve that peg, if they can't maneuver their supply to achieve that peg, and that peg breaks, it's going to confirm that lack of faith, and very few stable coins recover from that. There have been a few that have failed in the past that didn't come back. So it's a really interesting concept of the risk between stable coins and Bitcoin. You can certainly use both for different things. This concept of taking your profits from altcoins and putting it into Bitcoin, I think is excellent, especially, or maybe only, if you have a long-term investment strategy with Bitcoin. If you have like at least 5 years, then yeah, put it into Bitcoin. I'm sure you're going to be fine. There's no guarantees in crypto, but I think that's a conservative way to go about it. But also feeding into this kind of relative uncertainty of stablecoins is now the SEC and a lot of US-based regulators. They see stablecoins as like their biggest threat. Not to get too much of a conspiracy theory or anything, these regulators are always saying they're here to protect the consumer, they're here to clean up the crypto space and get rid of scams, but they're actually targeting some of the most, maybe not Tether, but some of the most reputable forthcoming projects. And there's other scams that are happening, and they're ignoring them because they feel threatened that people are using stable coins instead of going into their actual fiat currency. So that is something that I've been paying attention to too. These kind of centralized stable coins like Tether and USDC are probably more at risk of possibly becoming smothered by the incoming regulations. They can't keep up with it. They can't afford it. They can't play by those rules for whatever reason. So they get out of business. That's why I've been paying a lot more attention to these decentralized stable coins like DAI and UST with Luna. Luna is relatively new, but DAI has been around since 2016, 2017. So I think those are going to be a lot more robust against that potential regulation clamp down that could happen with stablecoins. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how even people are, maybe, because if you look back actually in 2017, Tether was like number 10 or something in the top 10 market cap. So it wasn't even that popular back then. But stablecoins have definitely taken the spotlight a lot. So it's interesting to see people kind of shift back towards other more secure ways to lock away their profit.
But it's interesting to note, no, that if you are planning to store it for a longer period, isn't it a more risky proposition to put it in stablecoin? Because all this time I was thinking, okay, when everything pumps, take profit, leave it in stablecoins first, then and then wait for it until everything subsides and you can use that stablecoin to drop. But I've met a lot of people that their entire plan is take profits, stable coins, then put it maybe in Anchor and get a higher rate of return there and just get passive returns from that. But doesn't that feel a bit risky than just putting it in Bitcoin? But then again, Bitcoin can also drop it. So I don't know how you balance that, and what would you do personally with that setup, especially right now that we're relatively in the higher end of all of the other crypto prices right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of strategies to do with your profits, and certainly putting it into a stable coin for a relatively short amount of time, if it's, just to ride out that initial drop. And then when you start to see an accumulation phase develop, use those stable coins or dry powder to accumulate your other positions. That's a solid plan, one that we will be employing. Also, like you said, you can use it for DeFi or farming or staking your stable coins to earn a passive income that way. There is an added risk with that, unless you're taking out insurance, just because you are involving a smart contract that is new, because DeFi is new and still relatively untested. So it'll be interesting to see when a lot of these people are taking their huge profits that they're seeing from their altcoins and putting it into a smart contract. The amount of money that will be locked in that smart contract is going to be very tempting for hackers to try to find the bugs, find the loopholes, and drain it. So there's also insurance now that you can take off for, at least for Ethereum based DeFi protocols. You can take out insurance to protect yourself, which I think is an excellent idea. Like Nexus is a popular one. Or versus just putting it into Bitcoin is, you're going to see some loss with Bitcoin. But again, that's what I was saying. If you're long term, if all your goal is to take some profits that maybe wouldn't have been possible with Bitcoin in that short amount of time, and feeding that into Bitcoin to hold it for a long period, that could be good. Because usually also, we've seen the Bitcoin dominance rise, which is what we're seeing now, and the altcoins have been bleeding, but Bitcoin's rising. And when that shifts over, people start taking profits from Bitcoin and feeding it into altcoins. At the end of the bull run, if that happens again, if Bitcoin goes and then it drops and altcoins are pumping, then you can take profit, you can time it. Hopefully you can time it right. Take your profits from your altcoins when they're up and then feed it into Bitcoin when at least it's not its all-time high, it's a little bit lower. But it depends on your trading strategy, on your appetite for risk. You definitely don't have to go all in on any of these strategies. You can try them all out. Maybe, again, depending on your risk strategy, maybe go more into stable coins for the initial drop, and then feed that into Bitcoin during an accumulation phase, and then also use some of those stable coins to either do lending or DeFi. There's risks in everything in crypto, but the beautiful thing is, like, every year that this space develops, there's more and more ways to take your money and turn it into more money and get so many different streams of income. So it's breeding a different kind of person in the world, I think, and how people are investing, and it's really interesting.
Got it. I want to transition into altcoins right now, and I'll start with this question first. We just had a London upgrade for Ethereum. ETH 2.0 is coming in the next few months, depending on what you have on it. But do you think that because of this and then the rise of NFTs, will Ethereum flip Bitcoin, or it won't happen?
I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical that Bitcoin or that Ethereum could flip Bitcoin. Certainly, it's interesting now that they have a deflationary supply model that they introduced a few months ago. So with all that attention from the NFTs, all these really expensive transactions that people are paying, that Ethereum is getting burned. So it's, I think, attributing to increase in price, increase in market cap. But yeah, I don't know. I'm skeptical that Ethereum can flip Bitcoin, because for I don't know. I feel like still most money flows through Bitcoin first and then into altcoins. There's some concerns with Solana as well, with its type of centralization and what it takes to run the network, the expense of that, and how that can be limiting in the future. None of these platforms are seeing the type of traffic that Ethereum is. I'd be really interesting to see how they handle that, because I guess, you know, either something goes majorly wrong with Ethereum, or they have fixed the scalability issue without sacrificing things like decentralization or security.